The KUAM Podcast Network is back and on demand, featuring a great variety of podcasts from our island and region, including culture, lifestyle, awareness, crime, politics, commentary, comedy, and entertainment. Available on most streaming platforms. The KUAM Podcast Network. Subscribe and listen now.
And we were telling you earlier in the show a few times that our dear friend Kate Baltazar-Dodge, someone who I have had immense respect for many a year. I've interviewed her more times than I can remember. She's always been someone who has committed herself to community service, and now she continues that dedication as a podcaster. And we are very, very happy to have her as the newest member of the KUAM Podcast Network family with her new show on dealing with grief. And Kate, this show and you know, the spirit and the expertise and the experience that you bring to our network couldn't be more needed right now. So thank you, first of all, for doing this show.
Good morning. Buenas. Day, Jason, Chris, Bree, and the whole KUAM team. It's a really exciting day. You'll have to forgive me if you hear any, motorists. I just came out of a doctor's appointment, so I'm sort of pulled over here. And I want to make sure that I saw you guys on time. Jason, I'm so humbled by that intro. Thank you.
Well, it's certainly very justified and everything. And and like I said, I mean, as long as I've personally known you and everything like that, you've always gone the extra mile to not only give back to the community, but to really connect with people and really have that sense of empathy, with our community. And now you've launched a new podcast, like I said, on the KUAM Podcast Network, One with Grief. So maybe break down, kind of encapsulate, what it entails and how did you choose this topic to talk about?
So, I know that it's we're over the term, unprecedented times, and new normal. But I think that, as we're going through and we're emerging from, I think the huge brunt of the pandemic, we're starting to take stock of a lot of things, including our mental health and the things that we felt, during the pandemic, because I feel like during the pandemic, it was a state of a lot of information overload, a lot of, I need to make sure I'm doing all these things. I'm washing my hands, I'm sanitizing, I'm social distancing, and what's the latest today? A lot of that had a huge impact on our mental health. And pandemic grief is a real thing. And I think that with people being at home, they're finally able to say, you know what, I got some things that I need to grapple with that I didn't have the time to grapple with before. Mm-hmm. So we're emerging from that. And one of the things, as you know, I left government 2 years ago, and how I could circle back to my roots, my being in social services and human services for over a decade. It was kind of like, well, how do I circle back and where's the greatest need? And I had this huge opportunity to become an advanced certified grief recovery specialist, which is this amazing field, that is so needed. But as I was saying, Jason, a lot of people just don't want to talk about grief. It's uncomfortable. They don't really understand what grief is, what grief isn't. How do they get help? Where do they find the resources? And when I was talking to Chris, it was like, you know what? I would absolutely love to be a part of this. And I think this is an absolutely perfect topic, so that we can normalize grief. We can normalize feelings. We can normalize grappling with those feelings, processing those feelings, and normalizing the fact that, we should seek help when we need it. Yes. As normal as if you sprained your ankle, as normal as if you, cut yourself, bush cutting or something. You know what I mean? Like we seek help for those things, but we got to normalize seeking help for mental health and behavioral health things as well.
And I think, Kate, I just noticed something, that virtual background you have is that the Golden Gate Bridge or is that the Bay Bridge?
It is. It's the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's the Golden Gate.
It's
Okay, I always get the two confused in the Bay Area, but it's so unbelievably telling and apropos because that gorgeous sunrise coming over there is the focus. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the focus of your new show is to basically help people find that light coming out of a very, very dark place and a place that people don't want to be in. They don't want to address for whatever reason, and they just kind of like shuffle off to the side.
Yes, absolutely. So the podcast focuses, the first episode is kind of laying the groundwork on grief. And then as we move forward and progress, and I hope that the listeners and everyone will find it useful. We'll kind of delve into the other grief events. There are over 43 different life events that can cause grief. And so
I remember that poster. We had that in high school. We had that in health school. It's this big poster, and it says obviously, like a loss of life, loss of a child, divorce, things like that. And then, like in terms of emotional impact and severity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited. To be a contributor with the podcast because, again, there isn't anything like it. Which makes it unique and interesting. There isn't anything like it right now that in our community that's kind of going on a regular basis. I have a huge network, not a huge network on Guam, but a huge network worldwide of grief recovery specialists. But here on Guam, we have our very own group, and I'm going to be looping them in as well in future episodes. Darlene Garcia is one for sure. So she and I connected many years ago, and she brought grief recovery to Guam.
Fantastic resource. She actually gave me a copy of the grief recovery handbook, and ironically, just about a week before my father passed away, and it was an invaluable resource and everything. I always thank her for that.
Oh my gosh, Jason. I will venture to say that if anyone is listening right now, you have to tune into this podcast. It's really amazing. And the first one is really, again, like I said, laying the groundwork, but it helps ease you into uncomfortable topics surrounding grief. Just by virtue of us being humans and the many different losses and changes in pattern of behavior over the last 18 months, all of us are grieving, and a lot of us have compounded grief. We have stuff that was going on before COVID, even hit. Yep. And we were kind of trucking along, carrying that. So I want to help unpack these things and give resources as well to those who may need this. And so many people, I get calls and emails every day. And I just do my very, very best. I get requests from schools, saying, can you talk to our faculty? Can you, I've spoken with GCC, I've spoken with some UOG groups, just to talk about, the different ways, everyone is coping. How can we move from coping to living,
Well, Kate, you're not only like one of the most compassionate people in our community, you're also a heck of a salesperson. So here we're gonna play, like, you've whetted everybody's appetite for this, because whether you know it or not, you probably do need several aspects of this podcast. So here is a little snippet from the debut episode of One with Grief with Kate Baltazar-Dodge.
Buenas and half a day, everybody. I'm so super happy to be here. I'm Kate Baltazar-Dodge. I'm an advanced grief recovery specialist. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about something that is really uncomfortable to talk about. And it's one of those things that we often overlook when we're talking about things like feelings or emotions or things like that. And that is grief. So I'm here today with this first part of a series that is called One with Grief. A lot of times, we often associate grief with death and dying. I think when if you were to poll 100 people, 90% of them would come back and say, yeah, grief is about death and dying, but it's actually so much more than that. And in this first episode, I just kind of want to cover what grief is and what grief isn't, because that is, I think, fundamentally how we understand grief is eventually going to be how we move forward in dealing with our grief every day. So we think about ourselves as young children. And if you were to picture yourself as a young child and you have a backpack, and this backpack is empty, we're all given an empty backpack, right? If you can just close your eyes and picture that for a moment. You're picturing yourself walking along as the young person that you are. In my instance, young Kate has a red backpack. It's empty. It's an empty backpack. We start out life with an empty grief backpack, right? But as we go along in life, and sometimes, unfortunately, for many of us, grief begins before we even start school, right? Even before we're interacting with playmates and schoolmates. So every time we have a grief event, a boulder gets added to this backpack. And there are many, many boulders, different kinds of boulders that get added to our backpack as young kids. Some children experience the death of a grandparent. Some kids experience divorce, the divorce of their parents. Some kids experience bullying, which is an episode in and of itself that I'm going to talk about in the future. But so pretty soon, as we're going along through life, we have these grief boulders. What do we think happens when so many boulders are just jammed in this backpack? And now our backpack is overflowing with these grief boulders. Gets heavy, right? Gets really heavy. And what happens is people go through life just carrying around this backpack of boulders that they've been collecting since they were little kids. So grief recovery and the grief recovery method is an evidence-based program to help you unload little by little those grief boulders.
One with Grief with Kate Baltazar-Dodge. Available on the KUAM Podcast Network right now. You can get it on Spotify, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Audible, everywhere that podcasts are available. We put it there. We're also going to share it on our Facebook timeline as soon as the link is over. So you guys really want to listen to us because, I mean, it's not super academic. You know, they're not going to throw, Kate's not going to throw like a whole bunch of, theories and make you do homework and everything like that. It's basically sitting down, having a wonderful conversation with a trusted learning friend who can really help you kind of like maybe address some of the things that you might not even know are inside you and everything. So Kate, again, a wonderful thing that you're doing, and we're just happy to be along for the ride and kind of provide the infrastructure for you to do so. But you're an amazing human being.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Thanks, Chris. This is a beautiful partnership. I hope to continue, and I'm available and always willing to help for as long as you guys will have me.
Oh, man,
Absolutely.
Kate. Honors all ours. I just love the metaphor you used with the backpack full of boulders. And it kind of got me thinking, like, and you said in that clip that people go through their whole lives carrying these backpacks, right? And then that forces you to grow a certain way when you're carrying that weight, right? So it's really deep, man. And I'm very, very honored, excited, and humbled to have you be part of our podcast network. Thank you.
Kate.
Likewise. Thank you, friends. Stay safe.
That's that.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
All right, 9:49. Let's keep it going with Jason Solis in the KUAM News Zoom room. Next, knee deep in kimchi. We're going to tell you how to get it this Saturday.
Let's do some kimchi.
Let's go. I'm down. It's 9:49. The link continues next.
Uno Mixed. We're mixing it up on the last Thursday of every month with a look at lifestyle, entertainment, food, and so much more on the stations, networks, and digital platforms of KUAM Communications. Uno Mixed is presented to you by Docomo Pacific, Better Together, and Pepsi.
The KUA